What's up YouTube? It's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka Low, and I'm back with another video. Now, this video is pretty self-explanatory, so I don't believe I have to go into any deep details with the intro. It says it directly in the title. These are my top 10 shooting guards of all time. However, before we get into the video, I do want to say that this is part of a series on my channel where I'm breaking down not only my top 10s list for each position, but also I am concluding the evolution series for each position as well. So early on this month, I not only gave you my top 10 point guards list, but also the evolution of the point guard position. I'll make sure I leave all of that at the end of the video, as well as in the link in the description. And I say all of that to say, if you want to be caught up on everything, make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you can be updated when I upload all of these videos. I plan to upload a lot within the next week, so again, make sure you're updated. But with all that being said, let's get right into the video. Coming in at number 10, we have Ray Allen. Ray Allen is a 6'5" shooting guard who spent 18 seasons in the NBA. Within his time in the NBA, he had a playing style that was very impressionable on the following generation, so much so that many people, including myself, would partially credit him for popularizing the three-point shooting that he innovated throughout his time in the league. His ability to torch his opposition from behind the arc was felt while wearing 4 different jerseys. First, he played in Milwaukee as he led the Bucks to a 2001 Conference Finals appearance. His second stint was in Seattle, where a majority of his prime was played in, as he was able to average nearly 25 points per game in his 4.5 years playing for that organization. And famously, he played for the Boston Celtics as one of the big three, playing alongside Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, won a championship in 2008, made another finals appearance in 2010, and ended his career playing for the Miami Heat, where he not only won another championship, but also made one of the greatest shots in NBA history. When it was all said and done, Ray Allen averaged roughly around 19 points a game, 4 rebounds, shooting 45% from the field, and impressively enough, 40% from behind the arc. And because of that, he also ended his career with the most three-pointers made by a noticeable margin. And before I forget, he also ended his career scoring over 24,000 points, a 10-time All-Star, and made an All-NBA team twice. Coming in at number 9, I have Tracy McGrady. T-Mac is a 6'8" shooting guard whose career began in Toronto while playing alongside his cousin Vince Carter, but his career really took off when he made the transition to play for the Magic. While in Orlando, McGrady quickly proved that he had the ability to be one of the greatest scorers the league has ever seen, and a great example of this is what he was able to accomplish in 2003 when he not only led the league in scoring, but did so while averaging 32 points per game while shooting 45% from the field and 38.6% from behind the arc on 6 three-point attempts. He would continue his scoring escapades throughout the following year, but unfortunately his productivity really wasn't that impactful, in large part to do with his running mate Grant Hill being plagued with injuries. Because of this, McGrady would take a different path in his career in the summer of 2004 and sign with the Houston Rockets, where he would have the ability to play alongside Yao Ming. In Houston, he would not only continue to be, again, one of the greatest scorers the league has ever seen, but also piece together some very impressive regular season runs. Unfortunately, though, those runs would never really translate into postseason, partially because T-Mac himself dealt with injuries that cut his prime significantly short. However, at his peak, McGrady was able to piece together 7 All-NBA caliber seasons, as well as receive the 2001 Most Improved Player of the Year award to go along the 2 seasons where he led the NBA in scoring. Coming in at number 8, I have George Gervin. George Gervin was a 6'7" shooting guard who was given the name Iceman due to his cold scoring touch, because when discussing some of the greatest scorers of all time, the original Iceberg Slim should be brought up in that conversation more often. He led the NBA in scoring 4 times. The most impressive season was the 1980 season, where he was able to lead the league while averaging 33 points a game while shooting 52, nearly 53% from the field, and also 85% from the free throw line. And despite Gervin playing less than 800 games in the NBA, he still was able to accumulate over 20,000 points. And to be clear, those 20,000 points do not include anything he produced in the ABA. What's even more impressive is what Gervin was able to accomplish in 1979 as he led the San Antonio Spurs to the conference finals and pushed the Bullets to a Game 7. And in that Game 7, he dropped 42 points. At his peak, Gervin was a perennial All-NBA and All-Star performer, and when it was all said and done, he had a career average of 25 points, 5 rebounds, and just below 3 assists. Coming up next, we have Reggie Miller, who was a 6'7" shooting guard who spent his entire career playing for the Indiana Pacers and really pieced together one of the more impactful careers that the league has seen in the past 20 to 30 years, in large part to do with how sensational he was from behind the arc. as Miller is known as one of the more identifiable pioneers when it comes to that style of play that has really taken over the league over the past 5 to 6 years. Thanks to his contributions, not only does Reggie Miller have the second most three-pointers in NBA history, but also is one of the very few players to ever have a 50-40-90 season. Also, when it was said and done, Reggie Miller finished his career with over 25,000 points, was a 5-time All-Star, and a 3-time All-NBA recipient. Now, even though that may not sound a lot, especially in context to the players I have below him, the one thing that really separates him from a lot of his peers, even on this list, some of which are even ahead of him, is his postseason success. For a player who never played alongside another all-time great, there was a stretch in Reggie Miller's career where he had the ability to lead the Indiana Pacers to a conference finals rather consistently, and a huge reason for this has a lot to just do with Reggie Miller's heroics. But with that being said, in an attempt to be transparent, honestly, these first 4 names are really hard to rank in my opinion, in large part because their pros and cons vary drastically from one player to the next. So please don't hold me to these rankings because honestly, I could feel completely different tomorrow. Coming in at number 6, I have Clyde Drexler. And if you follow me on Twitter as well as on the community posts on this channel, you'll know that I had a hard time ranking Clyde Drexler, largely because he checks off all of the boxes that you would expect from an all-time great. So, statistically speaking, Clyde the Glide is one of the more impressive players in NBA history. He is top 35 in both points and assists, as well as top 10 in total steals all time. And then when it comes to rebounding, he is one of the best rebounding perimeter players the league has ever offered. Then when it comes to the impact that he had on winning, Drexler led the Portland Trail Blazers to some of the more successful seasons in franchise history. To be a bit more specific, between 1990 to 1992, the Trail Blazers made 3 straight conference finals appearances, 2 of which translated to finals appearances. And again, Clyde Drexler led those grossly underrated teams to a massive amount of success. And once his time in Portland concluded, he transitioned to the Houston Rockets in the middle of the 1995 season. And a part of his career that I honestly believe does not get talked about enough is that when he was in Houston, he immediately became one of the more impressive second options the league has ever seen. Unfortunately, it was short-lived, but by the end of the 1995 season, he was able to call himself a champion. The only box that Clyde Drexler doesn't check off is influence, which is why I have Allen Iverson ahead of him at number 5. So Iverson, very similar to Drexler, checks off a lot of the boxes as well. Statistically, he is an amazing player, especially when it comes to scoring, as he recorded nearly 25,000 points. He did so while leading the league in scoring for 4 times, and it doesn't even include his highest average, which was 33 points back in the 2006 season. And then when it comes to assists and steals, Iverson was dominant in those statistical categories as well. And then when it comes to team impact, he was able to lead the Philadelphia 76ers to some pretty impressive seasons. It wasn't as consistent as I think a lot of people remember. However, the one year that stands out the most is what happened in 2001, where he not only won league MVP, but also led the Philadelphia 76ers to the NBA Finals. But the one thing that really separates Iverson from Clyde Drexler outside of the MVP is his influence and impact on the game at large, especially when it comes to his innovation with the crossover move, as well as his individuality that he showed off the court. Coming in at number 4, we have James Harden, who is still in the league, so I don't really know if I have to do that much detailing or outlining of his career. So just briefly, James Harden began his career playing with the Oklahoma City Thunder as a bench player and was so dominant in that role that in 2012, he won 6th Man of the Year. Later on that year, he was traded to the Houston Rockets, where he quickly proved that he could be a lead player on a playoff team. And then slowly after that, he transitioned to being one of the greatest offensive players the league has ever seen, especially over the past 3 to 4 years, where he has routinely led the NBA in either scoring or assist, so much so that he's put up some scoring numbers that could rival Michael Jordan at his peak years. And also when it comes to his assist numbers, they are very impressive for someone who can average 30 plus points on a night-to-night basis. Furthermore, when it comes to his impact on winning, even though a lot of people criticize him on the lack of finals appearances, especially being a lead player, it is true. However, when you put into context the teams that he had to face before he could even get to the finals, it's very understandable for a player like him not to have reached that deep in the postseason yet. However, the consistent regular season success that has not only translated to an MVP, but also consistently winning 50+ games, in my opinion, is extremely impressive and is something that not too many players on this list can claim they have the ability to do so. And honestly, if he played in another era or played in another conference, I am 100% sure that James Harden would have made the finals by now. His innovation with the step back jumper has been ridiculous, and I honestly believe it will change the trajectory of ball handlers moving forward. And I also believe that he is nowhere near done when it comes to his prime and his impact that he has on the league, and more than likely he will end his career just as decorated, if not more decorated, than a lot of players on this list, even some of which who are ahead of him. Speaking of which, coming in at number 3, I have Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade was introduced into the league back during the 2003 draft class, which is one of the more impressive draft classes in NBA history, and rather quickly, he provided more than enough evidence that he had the ability to lead the young franchise to its first championship, as he was able to win it in his 3rd year in the league, and not only do so, but win a Finals MVP as well. Also, Wade was able to prove that he was able to be impactful on both ends of the floor, as he ended his career as an 8-time All-NBA player, as well as making 3 All-Defensive teams as well. Unfortunately, the future Hall of Fame guard's prime was relatively short, which had a lot to do with his injuries, but it was great for him in his career as he transitioned to play alongside Chris Bosh and LeBron James to add 2 more championships to his resume. Coming in at number 2, we have Kobe Bryant, and honestly, I don't really think I have to do that much explaining about who Kobe is, as he is viewed as one of the greatest players in NBA history. Kobe played his entire career as a Los Angeles Laker as he entered the NBA back in 1996, and quickly proved that a player who was able to jump over college and straight into the league had the ability to make that transition a bit smoother than a lot of people expected. A huge reason for this has a lot to do with his work ethic, which eventually paid off as he, alongside Shaq, was able to win 3 consecutive championships, making Kobe one of the very few players in NBA history to pull off a three-peat. His championship success would carry on later on in his career, but not before he was able to torch the league with some of the greatest scoring outputs the league has ever seen, as he was not only able to lead the NBA in scoring twice, but do so while averaging 35 points a game. Ridiculous. In 2008, he was not only able to lead the Lakers back to a finals appearance, but also win league MVP, and then won back-to-back championships in 2009 and 2010. When it was all said and done, Kobe was named an All-Star 18 times, made an All-NBA team 15 times, and made an All-Defensive team 12 times, which is the most in NBA history, which is a testament to his longevity. And coming in at number 1, we have Michael Jordan, which honestly should be a no-brainer at this point. Jordan checks off not only all of the boxes to make him number 1 on this list, but all of the boxes to make him arguably the greatest player of all time. He was highly influential both on and off the court, especially at the shooting guard position, as he was able to prove that volume scores can indeed lead a team to a championship even as a perimeter player. Speaking of his scoring abilities, not only did he lead the NBA in scoring 10 times, but in 1987, he led the league while averaging 37 points a game, marking it as the highest scoring average in the modern NBA. But his impact wasn't just felt offensively, as on the defensive end, Jordan was one of the greatest perimeter defenders the league has ever offered, as he not only made the All-Defensive team 9 times, but also won Defensive Player of the Year in 1988. And throughout his career, he was named an MVP 5 times, making that the second most in NBA history, only behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But more famously, Jordan had an amazing impact on winning, as he was not only able to lead the Chicago Bulls to 6 championships, but also receive 6 Finals MVPs, never losing in the finals, as well as being able to pull off 2 three-peats. So there you have it, people. Those are my top 10 shooting guards of all time. Honestly, I don't believe that this list is all that controversial, especially with the top 4 selections. And even when it comes to the other 6 players on this list, honestly, I had to do a lot of nitpicking. So if you have a player up or down a spot or 2, it really wouldn't offend me at all. But please let me know what you think about the list in the comment section below. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.